Hello, welcome. It is week 1, and Raiders football is officially back. That means fantasy football is also officially back. The Raiders will let's be honest, the Raiders will be hosting the Chargers in our sunny Inglewood vacation home. And, it's Chargers week, so I had to rep my Los Angeles Raiders and my hat with our championships on it. I know Chargers wouldn't know anything about that. But all that rivalry aside, it's time to get into who I would bench this week in the fantasy aspect of things. Start off with the bad news. The Raiders defense did upgrade. Let's be honest. Chandler Jones, our secondary got younger, a little bit less experienced, a lot more to prove, I think. Anthony Averett, Rock Yassin, we just traded away Trayvon Mullen, who's been our cornerback 1 for the last couple seasons, but he just couldn't stay healthy, and he didn't prove that much to the new regime, obviously, to keep him around. But Sam Webb, Amik Robertson, Trayvon Merrick, Jonathan Abram, we got a young secondary besides that of Daron Harmon, who's going to be in the mix now, a trusted vet for the Mick Ziegler regime. But I would just not trust them yet, especially against Justin Herbert and a dynamic Chargers offense. Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. It's just going to be, even Joshua Palmer's emerging, Gerald Everett. So I would just steer clear of this Raiders defense. I think there's 10, 12 better defenses at least in this league right now. So those are definitely better options. And besides, I'm a big fan of the streaming defenses week by week, just depending on their matchups. But let's get into who else I would bench. I would stay away from the Raiders running back room just to start. I know Josh Jacobs historically has performed well against this Chargers defense. Last year in Week 18, he had 132 yards and a touchdown to round out the season. But let's be honest, the Chargers did upgrade their defense, especially in the run-stopping category, because they knew they were so porous in that category last year. They added dudes like Austin Johnson, Sebastian Joseph Day, Khalil Mack, all pretty decent run stoppers. So their mission this year, I think, is going to be to plug up the middle of that line. And I think Josh Jacobs is just not a viable RB1 just yet because of the Mick Ziegler era running back committee. They're going to do it just like they did in New England. I think Jacobs is going to get that Harris role. I think Zamir White's going to go into that Ramondre Stevenson role. That close number 2, Brandon Bolden's going to have his same role, and Amir Abdullah is going to kind of usurp that James White role this year, which might, he's going to be that receiving back. I think he's going to take away a lot of the PPR value for Jacobs, Zamir White. But not a bad flex. I think Josh Jacobs might be a little bit touchdown dependent this year. But I think we're going to be a lot better in the red zone, so I think that might be worth a look later. But just week 1, I would stay clear until we know exactly what we're dealing with this season. But moving into obvious starters, I think the big 3, the receiving room, I should say, with Darren Waller, fresh off that extension. Today, 3 years, $51 million. Let's go, 6th highest paid tight end in the league. Still pretty good value for a dude that I think is the best receiving tight end in the game right now. He's going to have mismatches. Adams is going to have mismatches, and Renfro is going to be, they're going to be plugging up that middle right there. Renfro, Waller, they can exploit, safety matchups, even with Derwin James out there, who's a stud, and I think he's kind of itching to cover Waller. I think having any sort of linebacker on Waller is out of the question, but if they do, Waller's going to exploit that for sure. They're going to have to double team Adams. So where does that leave Renfro? Where does that leave Waller? I think both are going to be great options, especially in PPR leagues. I think there's going to be a lot of target share on this Raiders team. And I think bringing that to Derek Carr, Derek Carr's always kind of been an intriguing fantasy option because he has always had the talent, and he never had the weapons, and this year he finally got his number 1, Devontae. He had Amari Cooper and Crabtree at one point, but Crabtree was a touchdown-dependent wide receiver. Cooper struggled with drops. This year I think Carr is going to go over 5,000 yards. I think he's going to go around that 28 to 32 touchdown range, and maybe that 9 to 13 interception range. Not bad, especially if you can fit him into a super flex or a QB2. I think there's probably 10 to 12 better fantasy quarterback options that you could start before Carr. But I do like Carr this year as a fantasy option more than I ever have as him being our quarterback. So Carr's worth a look. I would wait maybe until we know on the J.C. Jackson news for sure. I know he's doubtful right now, but that's going to have huge implications. And if J.C. Jackson is out, Adams is a bona fide wide receiver one. If he already isn't, and he is. So I would start Adams, Renfro, and Waller in PPR leagues. Easy starts. Renfro outside of PPR leagues, worth the look. Maybe not worth the start just yet. But with that being said, I think those dudes are going to explode this week in Los Angeles. Hunter Renfro and Darren Waller are going to eat up the middle of that field. You do not want to put a linebacker or a safety on those two dudes. Asante Samuel, I'm assuming, will be covering one of those two, which leaves Michael Davis, who is a kind of an unproven cornerback 3 on that Chargers defense, to cover Adams, cover Waller. Depends. So I think, depending on that news, it's going to be an easy start all the way across the board for that wide receiver room and that tight end room. Hell, even Foster Moreau might be worth a look coming up here in a couple leagues, especially if you have injuries. If Waller gets injured, God forbid, if he stays healthy, then I would probably ignore him there. But other than that, the Raiders are looking pretty solid this year on fantasy, more so than they have in recent years. I've always avoided the Raiders personally in fantasy. I know I'm a Raiders fan, but the games are stressful enough without me having to worry about yards, receptions, touchdowns, anything like that. So going into it, I think maybe stay away from the running back room. Carr is borderline startable, but I would wait, to see how he does. I know that offensive line is not exactly going to give him the most time he needs to develop plays downfield. Adams to develop plays downfield, Waller, etc. But I think we're going to run a lot of play action, so that kind of ups the intrigue of the running back room. I think we're going to have a lot of tight ends on the line helping block for Carr back there. But it's an interesting thing. The line, if you wanted to go further into depth about this offensive line, they didn't look bad in the run blocking category, but the pass protection looked pretty atrocious in this offseason. I still think McZiegler regime is going to look into adding another right tackle, and when that happens, I think then we can begin to explore this Derek Carr option maybe a little bit more. But until then, let's go, Raider Nation. Welcome back to Week 1 football. Let's go, baby.